Lake Hartwell is 63 years old this year. Green Pond Landing will turn 10 on December 19th of this year. But before Green Pond Landing, Lake Hartwell was a very, very popular place. In fact, if Lake Hartwell were a national park, it would be the second most visited national park in the United States. 10.5 million visitors come to Lake Hartwell every year, just behind Great Smoky Mountains National Park at 11.3 million visitors. Lake Hartwell National Park would have twice the visitation of Yosemite or Yellowstone National Parks. So even before Green Pond, Hartwell was a very, very popular place. The actual site of Green Pond is actually right on the old channel of the old river. So when we're at full pool, we have 30 feet of water at the end of our courtesy dock by our ramp. So it's very deep water. And of course, Lake Hartwell itself, the deepest part is 185 feet down by the dam. The lake itself is 56,000 acres of water, 962 miles of shoreline. 310 of those miles are in Anderson County. We have more shoreline than all the other counties around Lake Hartwell. Also, we are close to Interstate 85. Originally, I-85 was supposed to go north of Anderson through Seneca. And Wilton Hall, who was the publisher of the Independent Mail newspaper, he led a campaign in Congress to get the routing of I-85 changed to its current position. Anderson County has 35 miles on I-85, the most frontage of any county on the entire length of that interstate. Anderson County is 198 years old this year. Our story begins 74 years ago. 1950, U.S. Congress passed the Flood Control Act. That authorized Lake Hartwell. Shortly after that, the Corps of Engineers, which manages the lake, started acquiring land and, more importantly, determining land use. 69 years ago, Green Pond's fate was sealed when the Corps of Engineers mapped land use, and you can see that shading means it was reserved for public recreation and could not be used for anything else. So literally, it sat there for more than 50 years waiting for somebody to come up with something to do at Green Pond Landing. And later in the 50s, there was a plant on 12 Mile Creek in Pickens County that was discharging PCBs into 12 Mile Creek, which went into Lake Hartwell. And in the 1970s, we found out that PCBs were bad. They caused cancer. So Schlumberger, who owned the plant at the time, entered into a consent decree with the federal government. And as part of the consent decree, South Carolina received $8 million to make up for the lost recreational opportunities of its residents on Lake Hartwell. So the state formed a PCB settlement commission, and they basically created a beauty pageant. They solicited proposals from cities, counties, private groups on what would we do to help replace the lost recreational opportunities. Anderson County put in 2 projects that were funded. Green Pond Landing received $1.5 million, and we received another $200,000 for the fishing pier that we have at the Brown Road boat ramp down the road from Walmart, which goes up 200 feet into the lake. In 2008, the Bassmaster Classic came to Lake Hartwell for the first time. Now, originally, the Classic was supposed to go to another lake in the south that was even more impacted by the drought we were under at the time. When we hosted the Classic in February of 2008, the lake was 15 feet below full pool. It would eventually, at the end of 2009, end up 24.5 feet below full pool. And it was that drought of record that basically influenced our design at Green Pond. It was decided that if we ever get down to that drought of record again, we would like to have our ramp open so we can host fishing tournaments. So basically, the toe of our ramp is at 629.65 feet, meaning if we ever get down to 636-foot elevation again, we'll be open. Something we didn't plan for, but we learned 8 years ago in January of 2016 when the lake reached its highest elevation ever, almost 665 feet, 5 feet above full pool. Green Pond was functioning like it was just a normal day, whereas most other ramps on the lake were shut down because they were flooded. The Bassmaster Classic is created by an organization called Bass from Birmingham, Alabama. It was founded by a gentleman named Ray Scott, And BASS stands for, and this isn't sexy at all, Bass Angler Sportsman Society. That is what BASS stands for. BASS is the 900-pound catfish in the fishing tournament world. They are the big daddy, and a lot of the impact that we've gotten at Green Pond has come from BASS tournaments, and we have great relations with them. So, 2008 in February, Matt Shell was at the Bassmaster Classic. I was at the Bassmaster Classic. We didn't know each other at the time, but that was kind of the spark that got Anderson County thinking about, we got this lake, what if we had a place to have fishing tournaments on this lake? So it was shortly thereafter that the county started planning for Green Pond Landing. One of the other things we did when we were designing Green Pond Landing, and Blake Sanders, our architect, was there, best meeting we ever had in Anderson County's 198-year history happened in October of 2011. That's when we invited fishing tournament organizers to come meet with our architects and tell them what Green Pond Landing should be. And about 90% of what they told us they wanted in Green Pond, it is at there now, or it will be there in a future phase. For example, in 2011, Bass told us they wanted a drive-through weigh-in lane for fishing tournament weigh-ins. Well, 10 years later, when we opened our amphitheater in 2021, what did it have? The drive-through weigh-in lane that Bass uses. And every time Bass has visited Green Pond since that opened, they have used that weigh-in lane. So we've had 5 phases of construction. We have 2 more to go. The next phase will be 3 more launch lanes next to the original 3 launch lanes. They won't be as long and deep as the original launch lanes. And then the last project is right here at the top of the peninsula. There'll be a 15,000 square foot expo center to host fishing tournament banquets, registrations. I'm sure we'll host weddings there, things like that. But those are the 2 we've got. Currently, our investment at Green Pond is about $8.6 million. These next 2 phases will probably raise that to about $15 million. The picture on the top left is they're actually pouring of the launch ramps. The ramps were poured on land and then pushed into Lake Hartwell. The ramps are 250 feet long, and in August of 2014, when all 3 sections were pushed into the lake, it was 1.2 million pounds of concrete, the heaviest concrete push on record. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records. So that was the first phase. The second phase, we expanded the courtesy docks and we added a 110-foot tower for fishing tournaments to live stream their weigh-ins and their takeoffs. And believe me, that gets used a lot in the 21st century. Our third phase wasn't very sexy. It was a nice picture of something blowing up, but basically we did traffic improvements around the ramp to make it easier to host 2 300-boat tournaments. Our fourth phase was our bathroom. It is the nicest bathroom Anderson County will ever build. Even if you don't have to go to the bathroom, go to Green Pond and see that bathroom. It is absolutely a stunner. And our fifth phase was the amphitheater and the weigh-in dock, and of course the weigh-in lane that Bass told us 10 years ago that they wanted. So again, $8.6 million so far, and we've got $110 million in fishing tournaments to our name. These are some of the tournaments that make up that number. These are not all of the tournaments we've hosted in 9 years, but certainly 3 Bassmaster Classics. And by the way, Portman Marina hosted our first Classic, so that means there have been 4 Bassmaster Classics on Lake Hartwell. That ties Hartwell with Lay Lake in Alabama and the Louisiana Delta in hosting 4 Classics. No body of water has hosted 5 Classics until we host our next Classic sometime later this decade. So we'll be in the record books for that. The thing that has surprised us most about Green Pond is its global reach. We have had 14 different countries here fishing. And we're talking not just Canada and Mexico, we're talking Australia, Japan, South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Italy, Portugal. By the way, if you ever want to meet an Australian angler and you can't come to a weigh-in, go looking for a restaurant that serves chicken wings. Because for some reason the continent of Australia doesn't get into chicken wings, and when their anglers come here, they go nuts for our chicken wings. The picture of our South African angler is not there by accident. In December of 2019, we hosted the Bass Nation Championship. In November of 2019, the team from Africa flew here to pre-fish the lake for a week. Now, South Africa to Anderson is 24 hours each way in a plane. So they go home in November, turn around the next month, and come back here to fish the tournament. And the pre-fishing must have worked because they ended up 7th out of 59 teams. So, but that's just crazy. I mean, thinking about 24 hours each way to go fish. And remember, it's Green Pond Landing and Event Center. It's not just about fishing. In fact, our first event happened in January of 2015. It was a polar plunge benefiting Special Olympics Area 14. The water at Lake Hartwell was a balmy 48 degrees that morning. And of course, our largest crowd ever at Green Pond was not for a fishing tournament. It was August 21st of 2017 for the solar eclipse. If you remember, we were right on the center line for the eclipse. We had almost 2.5 minutes of darkness, totality, like second longest in the nation. We had 5,000 people at Green Pond for that, and we had more parking. We could have taken more people. And of course, 2 summers ago, in our new amphitheater, we had a series of plays that happened in July, September, and October. So we're not just about fishing, what really does pay our bills. So the last Bassmaster Classic was in 2022. Between the takeoff, the trade show, and the weigh-ins, 154,923 people attended the Classic. That set a record. And again, it's a 3-day tournament. We had about 11,000 people all 3 mornings at the takeoff. In fact, in terms of economic impact, that's our amphitheater with our weigh-in dock. That's $8.5 million worth of bass boats parked in that weigh-in dock. There are 56 boats, $8.5 million. We actually set a record with bass last summer. We hosted the biggest tournament boat-wise Bass has or probably will ever stage. We hosted the Bassmaster High School National Championship, 481 boats. We ended up using Green Pond and 3 other places to launch them. They all had to come to Green Pond to weigh in, and on Thursday and Friday of that week when the full field weighed in, it only took about 3 hours and 15 minutes to weigh everybody in. And the biggest fun for that tournament was South Carolina finished 1 and 2. Burns High School from Spartanburg County took the crown, and Palmetto High School from our county came in 2nd place. Also last summer, we hosted the Bassmaster Junior National Championship. This is 2nd through 8th graders. And both of these tournaments will be coming back. I can't tell you when, but they are coming back. One of the funny stories my favorite stories about Green Pond was right after we opened Green Pond in 2015, a gentleman from the Abbeville County Council called me. They wanted to do a Green Pond on Lake Russell in their county. And I said, okay, well, our first phase cost $3.1 million, and he was kind of cool with that. And then I said, but you know, these tournaments don't come here for free. And that's when the conversation ended, because all of these tournaments come with rights fees. The Bassmaster Classic costs Anderson and Greenville County about $500,000 to stage. 80% of that comes from Greenville County, so we have to come up with about $100,000. So it's not cheap. But again, the 2022 Bassmaster Classic had an economic impact of $34 million in Anderson and Greenville counties. Why do we have to share the Bassmaster Classic with Greenville County? Well, the bottom line is they can't do it without us. We can't do it without them. Because, yes, we have the lake and we have the gorgeous facility to launch your boats, but Bass also needs a 15,000-seat arena for weigh-ins and 250,000 square feet of trade show space for their trade show. So we are forever wedded together, Anderson and Greenville County. That is the only tournament we have to share with Greenville County. Of all the places the Bassmaster Classic goes, the shortest distance from where they fish to where they weigh in is right here in Anderson and Greenville County. 35 miles is nothing. In 2019, the 50th anniversary classic was in Birmingham, Alabama. They were fishing on Lake Guntersville on the Alabama-Mississippi border, 90 miles each way. Also, of all the places the Classic visits regularly, we are the largest TV market, which is a very attractive thing for Bass and its sponsors. The Anderson, Asheville, Greenville, Spartanburg TV market is the 37th largest in the United States, just behind San Antonio, Texas. We have more than 1 million people in our viewing area. And of course, just this past fall, The Association of Collegiate Anglers National Championship, we hosted their national championship last year. This is actually the winning team from Auburn University. There were more than 200 teams fishing in that tournament. And Bass Nation, we hosted that in October of this past year. So we are 9 years old as of December 19th of last year. Our economic impact, $110,190,180. I've been in tourism, again, 34 years. I've never seen anything go from zero to $110 million in 9 years unless it had the Disney name attached to it. This is really something special. I mean, you consider 19 years ago, nobody here talked about the lake. And now here we are at 9 figures, and we'll be adding about $4 million to that this year. In June, we've got the Bass Federation's High School World and National Finals, which we hosted in 2021, and that event filled 6,500 room nights. That's a $2 million tournament alone, that one tournament. And then in July, we've got the Bass Federation's junior tournament coming to us for the first time. So it's the gift that keeps giving. It's very interesting that on holiday weekends in the summer, we have to hire show pros to park people and direct traffic because we are so busy. And whenever we have to close Green Pond Landing, people are not happy because they're used to going to Disneyland with the nicest bathroom in Anderson County, and when they can't use it, like during a tournament, we hear from people. It's been an amazing ride. It really has been, and it's something that we as a county should be very proud of. And it's really, it's not just the Parks Department and the Convention and Visitors Bureau who make Green Pond happen. Our Solid Waste Department helps out. Our Roads and Bridges crews, they help direct traffic and drive golf carts. Our emergency management people are out there when we have big tournaments. Certainly our county administrator is there. So it's really it's an active village. It's not just, the Parks Department is 5 people. They couldn't do Green Pond on themselves. Visit Anderson is 3 people. So it really does take a village, and everybody has stepped up, and it's kind of fun. And it was very interesting that Anderson is the only place in South Carolina that can host the Bassmaster Classic.